We are live on YouTube now. Here we go. Cool, cool. Wow. Welcome everyone. So let me just quickly share my screen over here and then we can see, what do we have for today? We have something really special today. Share it here. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. So we have hit the clock, and today we have a very special session, and we have in fact three guests on the hot seats. They are from Microsoft, who on a special request they are here today to talk something about a latest technology what we have, that is Excel in Python in Excel. So welcome to Microsoft Excel Saudi Arabia Power Platform Meetup Group. And today we all are here as usual. It's one place in Finite Solution where we connect, we share, and we learn together. And today in this session, as I mentioned, we are going to talk something about Python. We are going to hear from the team itself. So it would be really lovely. So this session is going to be live stream on YouTube, and you can always find the recording over there. And right now, this session has been getting recorded and live stream as well. So just quickly about me, those who don't know me, I'm a Microsoft MVP and a founder of excelexciting.com. I'm an NCD and MIE and Microsoft Office Master, YouTuber, blogger, and run Meetup. And my mission is with my friends to give and provide easiest and exciting solutions with Microsoft applications that can make our tasks easy and quicker. And my passion is always to share the knowledge, gain it, and learn from you as well. So these are some of our past meetup which has been taking place. We have been started meetup since 2021, and Ken was a person who have encouraged me, Faraz, you should start a meetup in Saudi Arabia. I said, okay, fine. So, and Gasper and all our friends from the community over here. So these are some of the past meetup which has been taking place, and we have Harsh over here, who was the youngest speaker in our meetup group. He was just 18 years and he talked about Power BI, and that was really lovely, for us. And we hosted, myself and my friend Ilgar, we hosted an event, My Data Summit, which was a massive mega event with 33 speakers and including Microsoft team as well. And this is something happening this year, and these were some of our meetup sessions happened in a couple of years back. So if somebody from the community would like to share their knowledge and these superhero skills, please feel free to write me back on excelexciting@outlook.com. I'll be very happy to welcome you, and you can talk about anything Microsoft products or even Google products, connecting with Microsoft. It is a place where you can come and share your knowledge, and I'll be very happy with that. Just a few quick tips, just to have the best experience. Just make sure that you keep your mic mute, and if you have any questions in the chat box, you can just mention start Q, and you can mention your question. And if you really like to speak something in between it, then we request you to please raise your hand. And we will be definitely having some Q&A session at the end. And so just enjoy the show. And now, the main thing which is there, we have the Microsoft team itself over here. So let me quickly introduce you the team over here. We have Mr. Keyur Patel and Chris Gross and Nathia from the Microsoft team who are here and going to talk. So I'll leave the floor to Keyur, and Keyur, you can take the lead, and definitely you can just the floor is yours. Please tell us what is exciting news today for us.
Awesome. Well, first, thank you for having us in the community. We're super excited to be here today just to share with you more goodness around data analytics and Python and Excel. So maybe we can just do a quick round of intros between the three of us, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague Ndeyanta to get started. I'm Keyur. I'm a my title is a technical program manager here at Microsoft, where I get to herd the cats, or in this case, all the different snakes across Microsoft as we bring you new value. Been here for a while. I've lost count, but no matter what in my career, I've always found a home base working with Excel. Started off on the Excel team back in 2004, was there for 10 years, left the company, and I was a developer building software, and my bosses wanted me to build Office's solutions. So found my way back to Excel, and super excited to be here to chat with you. So I'll tag it over next to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Keyur. So my name's Chris Gross. I've also been at Excel, or been on Excel for a while, and at Microsoft for a bit. My love in Excel comes from bringing a lot of programming concepts to Excel and making calc better. So I've had the privilege of working on a number of stuff here, from data types to lambdas and now Python. So super excited to be here today and share all the awesome work that we've been up to. Hand it over to Ndeyanta.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Ndeyanta Jallow. I'm also a product manager on the Excel team. I work on Python and Excel, of course, but before that was doing some work in the Power BI space. So I'm really excited to be here and share with you all a little bit about what Python is, if you aren't familiar with it, and how we actually brought Python into Excel. This has been super exciting for me as someone who's coded in Python in the past, so it's been great to be able to work on this feature over the last few years. So with that, I'm going to try and share my screen. We are not Zoom. We don't use Zoom, as I'm sure you all know, so bear with me here as I try and hopefully share sound as well, because we have some videos. Okay. Says I'm sharing screen. If I do this, do you guys see the slides?
Yeah, we can see the slides. Thanks.
Perfect. Cool. So hello, everyone, again. We're here, of course, to chat a little bit about Python in Excel. I'm sure we'll share this deck with you afterwards, because we have a bunch of great links in here, and unfortunately won't work, I don't think, for you to click on live as I go through the slides. But one of those things is our super exciting blog post that we released earlier in the summer. So if you haven't already taken a look at that, we'll have the link here for you to take a look as well. So today, I want to walk through a few things. First, around what is Python, as I mentioned, for those who may not be familiar with it. Why Python in Excel, right? There's so many languages out there today. Why Python? We have a great lineup of demos for you, live demos, to show you actually how the feature works, and a bunch of different scenarios that you can use in your analyses today. Importantly, how we protect your data as you use the feature. And then if you haven't already tried to do so, how you can try it out, as well as resources to help you as you use the feature, hopefully over the next few weeks, years, and onwards. Okay, so we already went through introductions, but we do have our email addresses here. So again, at the end, when we ask questions, or if you have any feedback you'd like to provide, feel free to reach out to either of us directly. And with that, we'll go into what is Python. So for those who may not be familiar, Python's a programming language similar to Java, C++, but Python specifically has become increasingly popular over the years, as it has an easier to learn syntax and readability compared to some other languages. It's used extensively for data analysis tasks, so things you would ordinarily, you could do in Excel, for example, but things like data cleaning, visualization, and machine learning. And other languages like R, for example, if you're familiar with that, you can also use to do those things, but Python has an extensive library and ease of use that gives it an edge over some of the other programming languages that exist today. And lastly, there's a large community of Python users around the globe. So similarly to the large community of Excel users who have meetup groups like this, the same exists in the Python world. So there's a lot of support and community around folks who are heavy Python users or even learning Python, and a lot of resources out there to support you in your programming language journey. And so when we think about, as I mentioned, there's R, there's C++, why Python in Excel? Bing chat, as you hopefully may have already seen is one thing that we can leverage today with the whole world of AI. To ask simple questions like, can you give me the list of top tools I should learn for data analysis? So we asked this, it searched the top tools for us and gave us back an answer. It listed a bunch of different tools, Excel, Jupyter Notebook, Microsoft Power BI. But you'll notice that the top two answers back from Bing Chat was Microsoft Excel and Python. So we really wanted to emphasize that Excel is a spreadsheeting software that you're all very familiar with, can be used for data analysis, visualization, and reporting. But then Python is that programming languages that have libraries for data analysis like Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, but visualizations that you can't create in Excel today with Seaborn and Matplotlib, for example, but you can create with Python. So with that, we believe that there was significant opportunity to bring these two worlds together. As we know, there currently exists some friction in using these two tools together before we built Python in Excel. And so we did some research over the last few years to understand if Python is attractive to Excel users, and we found a few different things. On the customer side, we saw some folks in different industries with different roles saying things of the sorts like they're in the process of moving away from Excel to Python. They don't use Excel because they couldn't really use Python with it when they joined their organizations. Or even in the education space, MBA students who know Excel but really want to use Python. So we saw that in the customer lens of people moving away from Excel or not using it as much because they couldn't really combine the two tools. But then on the internet side, we saw a lot of articles around folks sharing information on how to ditch Excel for Python, calling Jupyter the new Excel, and even creating guides to help users move from Excel to Python. So with this, although we, one, know the friction exists today, and two, know that there are folks interested in both tools, we really wanted to come together and, did I miss a slide? Let me make sure. I don't think so. Okay, we really wanted to come together because we believe that the two tools, it's not an or, but it's rather an and. I am getting hung. Do you guys see the next slide or no? Oh.
We still see the Python is attractive to
Okay, I think this is it. Okay, perfect. So we believe it's not an or, but rather an and. So the two tools don't have to be separated, or you don't have to move from one to the other to create beautiful charts, beautiful graphs, strong analyses to share with your coworkers. But there are pros of both Python and Excel that when combined together can make it so powerful. So you'll see things that Chris will demo for you today that will show the power of Python within Excel, but then also leveraging the power of Excel to do things like sharing files easily with coworkers. That is the one friction point that users have today with using other development environments where it's very hard to share code with users, but leveraging Excel makes it very easy to do that, for example. And so if I go on to the next slide here, this is really what we've been sharing. Excel loves Python, Python loves Excel. We're really bringing the two worlds of data analytics together. And with that, our mission is to power all Excel users to do more with their data analytics. It's not only those who are super passionate about Python, not only those who are super passionate about Excel, but those who may have interest in both. And whether you're a novice Python user or an advanced Python user, you can leverage Python and Excel to do more with your data. And luckily for us, we're going to be doing this in two ways. The first is what I've been talking about thus far, the actual ability to write Python code in the grid within Excel. But then also with the movement of LLMs, large language learning models, as I'm sure you all have seen over the last year or so, and specifically with Microsoft's Copilot, we will also be bringing the ability to leverage Copilot to write, understand, and help you analyze your data with Python in Excel. So you can ask it like forecasts sales for the next 4 quarters. You may be interested in forecasts, but don't have the technical knowledge to know how to write Python code that allows you to do that. And Copilot will write that code for you. It will explain it for you, and you can insert it into your grid and do that analysis right there with the help of Copilot. So like I mentioned, this is for all users, whether you are advanced or novice. Especially with the addition of Copilot, we make Python and Excel accessible to all. And with that, really quickly, before we do some live demos, I just want to share some of our announcement videos that give a high-level overview of both of these things. So first, we'll look at just Python and Excel, and then I'll play a video around Copilot and show you guys how that works as well.
Python in Excel brings the world of Excel and Python analytics together. You can use powerful Python libraries right within your Excel workbook to create visualizations, machine learning models, and other advanced analytics. Python in Excel is integrated directly into the fabric of Excel. With the new py function, you can seamlessly use Python within the grid. No need to install anything. We are partnering with Anaconda to bring a secure and trusted Python distribution for analytics into Excel. This version will include popular Python libraries, such as Pandas and Matplotlib. Use Python to clean and manipulate your data, train machine learning models, create compelling plots, and more, right within the familiar, secure Excel environment. Using Excel's built-in connectors and Power Query, you can easily bring external data into your Python in Excel workflows. Security and privacy are core to the design of Python in Excel. The Python code runs on the Microsoft Cloud as a compliant Microsoft 365 connected service. Python in Excel is compatible with all the analytics features you know and love in Excel, such as Excel formulas, charts, pivot tables, conditional formatting, and more. Use the flexibility of Excel and the power of Python to make data-informed decisions and tell better stories with Python in Excel.
Perfect. So that gives you a little bit of a teaser of the Python in Excel feature. And now we'll switch it over to Copilot. If my slide changes. Oh. Okay. Let's play this. Oh, this one, let's see. Okay, this is a YouTube embedded video, so looks like I'm running into trouble. So I will figure out what's going on with this one. We can play it towards the end because it looks like it won't play the YouTube embedded one, but I'll share my screen to show the YouTube one live. But for sake of time, I'll pass it over to Chris while I sort out YouTube, and then we will walk through some live demos first.
Cool. Thank you, Ndeyanta. I'm going to start trying to share my screen, and then we'll get started. All right, y'all should see my screen at this point. Let me know if you don't. All right, so let's get started talking about Python and Excel. We saw a few quick overview videos of just what it means to author Python in Excel, but today I've actually put together 3 different demos that illustrate some of the common tasks that you might be using Python for.
So, sorry, I'm hearing a lot of echo. I don't know if anybody else is, or like a lot of static.
Is there a bunch of static?
Yes, even I'm getting.
Is it better now? I can try to switch to my webcam mic if it causes problems.
That's
Still a lot of static?
That's better.
Yeah, I think that fixed it. Thanks.
Okay. Looks like my machine just kind of worked itself out. So yeah, holler again if something goes wrong. So yeah, we saw a bunch about Python. I've created 3 demos today that illustrate a little bit about what it means to...
Sorry, it's back.
It's back again? All right. I'm going to switch from my fancy mic to the webcam mic. So give me 1 second. I'm going to mute myself real quick while I make sure this is working. Thanks for dealing with this.
Yeah, in the meantime, if anybody else has a question, happy to answer.
All right, can you all hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'll try to talk a little louder because I'm talking through my webcam up there. So thanks for dealing with the technical difficulties, and thanks for your patience. So yeah, we've got 3 demos today for Python and Excel. The first one that I want to start doing is one related to exponential smoothing. So in this first scenario, we're going to try to forecast some data. We've got some data about passengers and kind of their patterns over time. And so we want to figure out what's going to happen in the future. But before we can do that, I want to give a really quick overview about Python. If you don't have the Insiders beta builds, that's the place where you can get access to Python today. So make sure to sign up for Insiders beta if you haven't, but if you do have it, you can check to make sure that you've got the ability to author Python code by going over to the Formulas tab. So you can see here under Formulas, I've got a section called Python Preview. And part of that's because we're in a preview state right now. So please try this out. We're trying to fix stuff. We're actively fixing bugs day to day. So you giving us feedback and using this helps us build at the end. But from this, you can see a few different items related to Python. We've got something called diagnostics, initialization, and a reset button. When you want to get started, though, you'll want to hit the insert Python button. I would also suggest trying out the Python samples if you aren't familiar with Python, because we have a bunch of pre-canned examples here that you can simply insert into your spreadsheet with the click of a button if you want to learn a little bit about Python and don't necessarily know how to quite write all the code yet. But when you're ready to insert and go off the rails and do your own custom formulas, you can simply hit the insert Python button, and that'll put you into what we call the Python editing mode. And so from here, another piece of terminology that I'll be using today is you can author Python formulas. So I can author Python from this view, and you'll notice when you're in this view that things are a little bit different. And so there's a little bit of a change from authoring Excel formulas. And that's something that we've deliberated and tried to build a great design with, because we know that there's people working in Excel land and people working in Python land. So we're really trying to bring those two together and build a great experience. So when you're ready to write some code, you can simply write it like you would in any other environment. And so the first thing that I'm going to do today is actually import a bunch of libraries. So this is a standard process that you might do for Python when you're getting started. These are all the packages that you're going to want to use. It's all the kind of awesome features such as pandas and plotting libraries. And we're also going to be importing some stuff so that we can do our forecasting. Now, this last line of code that I wrote right here says Python libraries loaded successfully. And what this is actually doing is returning a string back to Excel. So when I commit this by hitting Control Enter, you'll see something in the grid that says Python libraries loaded successfully. So that lets us know that our Python libraries are loaded and we've connected to the cloud and everything seems to be working as expected. So the next thing that we want to do is get some data into the Python runtime here. So we've got our libraries. Now let's get some data. To do this, I'm going to use another entry point to kind of highlight the different accessibility options we have as far as where you can enter Python mode. And to do this one, I'll type equals P and then Y. And so this is another place where you can go to author Python formulas. And when I hit tab here, you'll see again that we go back into that Python mode. Now, I want to access some data. So I'm going to write a little more code and say df. And df stands as shorthand for data frame. So something that's popular with the Python libraries and how the data comes back when you've got a 2D grid in Excel. You'll want to get familiar with data frames. They're not too complicated. You can kind of think of it as almost like a table-like structure for Python data. Now you'll notice I've been able to just click over to the data tab and we can see the data that I was referencing here. We've got dates and passengers. And so for these dates, these are just the months, and then passengers are how many people were traveling during that month. And right now, at this point in time, I'm simply just using normal Excel keyboard shortcuts, which I like to highlight this because this is something that you could only do with Python inside of Excel. If you were using, inside of Visual Studio, you couldn't exactly go into your spreadsheet and click around and expect, just seamless integration. Whereas here, I can simply reference my data like I would anything else. The other cool thing that's going on here is Excel's automatically written a function for me. So when you're in Python world, to access the Excel data, you need to use this thing called the XL function. And this takes in a few parameters. The first is just the range of data that you want. And the second is whether or not you want to promote the information in the headers to true. So in this case, yeah, we want headers to be true because we've got dates and passengers, and that is in our first row of data. So now that I've done that, I can simply hit Control Enter. That sends it back up into the Python runtime, and now I've got my data frame back. For those of you that have been watching Excel, you've probably seen the evolution of the different types of data we have in Excel. And so in this case, we have yet another use of data types, and we can see that we're getting a data frame back here from Python. If I click on this, I can actually view the card that contains all the data within. So again, we've got our dates and passengers, and we can see that all those 144 rows of data were transformed into a data frame and brought back down into Excel. Now, the next thing I want to do is actually create a plot here. So to do that, I'm going to use yet another entry point that we have, and this is the one I'll be using for the rest of today, and that is Control-Alt-Shift-P. So if I hit that, it's going to put me back into Python mode. And I'm going to author a plot at this point so we can get a kind of a visual summary of what's going on with the data. And just a little bit about this chart, what we're going to see here is something that's looking at periods of 12. So we're looking at a year-long period, and we're just trying to look at the different passengers and see what sort of trends we can find in our data. So now that I've committed that, you might notice that we get something that says image back. And this is a good point to talk about the different modes that we have for returning data back from Python. So in this case, I can click on the card and take a look at the data here. But really what I want to have happen is I actually want this to land in the grid. And so if I go up here to the tab or to the formula bar, you might notice that there's two different options, and it's different from that FX that we had when you're authoring normal Excel formulas. I can click this to change the different Python outputs. So right now it's returning Python objects or data types. I can switch it to Excel values. And the basic thing that you need to understand here is when we get the data back from Python, we need to make a decision on how to represent it in the grid. And sometimes there aren't one-to-one transformations that we can do for data in Python. So one example I like to use is something like a float, really big number. Excel probably can't handle something like that. So this allows you to represent that data kind of as a one-to-one mapping, and you don't have to worry about that transformation. In this case, I do actually want Excel to make its decision, and I want it to turn this into an image. So if I click Excel value now, you'll see we'll do a little work, and now we're getting a chart back, and we can actually view our visual in line. So looking at this visual, there's a number of things going on here. The first is the trend component, and so this lets us see what sort of trend we have over time. So it shows us the long-term direction or tendency of the data. And basically, if it's increasing, it's suggesting a general upward trend, which we can see is actually going on here with our passengers. We've got more passengers traveling on a yearly basis over time. The other bit is seasonal. And what this is doing is giving us a little view on seasonality. So we can see that there's actually kind of another trend going on here, where there's kind of a peak at which people are traveling, and then it dies down pretty quickly from there. And this happens on a pretty frequent basis. And the last section of this chart is something called resid. And this basically is the confidence that we have from the plot that was created. So in this case, we want it to actually be as close to the zero line as possible, which means some of this outlier data here, we probably shouldn't trust as much as the stuff in the center. And overall, you can kind of combine that data together, and we get the chart at the top that gives us the trend of what's going on with our data. Now that's cool. We got our feet wet with Python. We've generated a chart. We've imported our data, but I said that we were going to start out by doing a forecast. So let's move on. So for this next bit, we're going to be using an ETS model. And so to do this, I'm going to go back into Python mode and author a bit more code. And so the model that we're going to use here is, or the method we're going to use here is exponential smoothing. And so what I'm doing at this point is I'm importing a bunch of data from Excel to apply to that exponential smoothing method. And so you can see I've selected some stuff ahead of time. So we've got
cell C8 here, which is seasonal periods. That means that we're going to look at stuff on a monthly basis. What sort of trend method do we want? In this case, we picked multiplicative. We could have picked additive if we wanted. Same with seasonality, we want additive as well there. And then finally, we want to use what's called a box-Cox transformation. That basically smooths out the data a little bit better for us. And from here, I can simply commit it. And you'll notice we get this object back called a Holt Winters results wrapper. So this is another example of where there's probably not a good representation of this in Excel. I mean, maybe we could give you the string back, but really this is a Python object. And so the data type encapsulation allows us to represent this nicely. Now, the cool thing is from this, we can actually build out our forecast here. So to do that, I'm going to simply use the model that we have here. So I simply select it. Now I can type .forecast. And in this case, I'm actually going to hit F2 on my keyboard. And this allows me to, this is going to allow me to move around the grid. So let me select this again, forecast. Oh, 1 second. Okay, there we go. When I hit F2 now, I can go move around the grid and I can actually select the location of the data that I wanted. So I'm going to stop spamming keyboard buttons here real quick. And let's try this one more time. Okay, so we've got excel.c14, which is our model. Now I want to do a forecast on this, hit F. And I'm just going to click it from now. From here, I'm going to reference Excel C12. And this is the data that we actually want to forecast on. And so what this means is how many periods are we going to go for? And in this case, I've said 24 periods. So approximately 2 years worth of data. So I'll commit that. And now we're getting a series object back. So we can see we've got 24 points of data. This is cool. We've got a bunch of numbers, but let's build a plot off of this. And this is something I find pretty cool because it's really easy to generate a plot in this case inside of Python. So again, I'm just going to click on the data that I want here, and now I'll type .plot. And so now that I've typed .plot, we're going to actually get a visual back of our data. So again, it's coming back as that data type object, but I can also use another keyboard shortcut to switch the modes here. So if I hit Control-Alt-Shift-M, you'll see that switches me back over, and now I'm actually getting a chart. And we can see what this new forecasted data looks like. And it looks like it's saying, hey, the trend's probably going to increase over time. And there also seems to maybe be a bit of that same seasonality occurring here. Now that's awesome. We just built our first forecast using Python with data in Excel. But what's even cooler is I can also use other standard Excel tricks. So in this case, I'm going to hit Control-R. What's going to happen is all the data fills over. And what's going on here is this data is actually referencing the different sections that we have here, right? Because we already built those references. It works just like Excel natively does. Now, one thing you might be noticing is that these charts look the same. And that's because one other thing you need to get familiar with when working with Python are the different calculation modes. So if I go over here to calculation options, I actually have this set as manual mode right now. I'm going to switch it over to partial. The difference in what you need to understand is manual means we're only going to calculate the cell that you've just committed. If you change something, we're just going to calculate it then. Partial means we're going to try to make a best guess on when things do need calculated. So if I hit partial, we'll notice that it only recalculates this section for me, which is great because the other code didn't change. And now we can actually see that in the other forecasts that we had for our other scenarios. And we can see some different trends that are occurring here. So that takes me through my first demo today, where we did some forecasting. Now I want to switch gears and show off another demo that I have. So this demo is one seen from some of our blog posts, and even the Copilot announcement. I think we used a couple screens from this one. But what's going on here is we've got a bunch of data, and we want to use regular expressions to do two things. The first is we want to actually strip out the date from our data. And then the second thing is we want to normalize it. So you'll notice that all these dates have different formats in them. And I've also got a bunch of different dates, but we're only pulling in this table right here because otherwise we'll get a bunch of date and it won't look as nice on my screen. So to do this, I'm using a function that I've created here. And you'll notice that you're only getting one line here. So if you ever run into that issue, you can hit Control-Shift-U, and that'll expand the formula bar for you. Alternatively, if you like using keyboard and mouse, you can click this button. But one thing that immediately is this function that I've created that does all the heavy lifting is pretty lengthy. Those other examples I had, those were like what I think we had a maximum of 7 lines of code. But in this case, we've got pretty lengthy chunk of information here. So this is where I like to talk about using another environment that we've recently released. And if you aren't familiar, you can use a tool called Excel Labs, which you can find in the add-in store within your app. So if you go into your app, you can go to, you can view everything, and within the add-in store, you can actually find this in there and you can install it. So in order to do that, you do a simple search. So I'll search for Excel Labs. In my case, I already have this installed. You can click add and it'll install. And I've actually got it up on my quick access toolbar so I can easily use it. So if I click this, you'll notice that Excel Labs launches. And we've got a couple different experiments in here. And this is pretty cool, at least on the product side, because with the introduction of Excel Labs, it's allowed us to release a couple of new experimental features that might have been a little more costly to put into the product, and also allows us to iterate faster and get feedback from the community a little faster than we would have if we built it into the product. So first one we released was something called the advanced formula environment. This is used for just normal Excel functions. Then we released something called labs.generative AI. I'm not going to demo this one today, but you can use your OpenAI keys and you get a function that comes with it. And then you can use OpenAI to kind of generate whatever sort of analysis you might need to. In our case today, we want to use the Python editor. And so the idea behind the Python editor is that it gives us a more task pane-like notebook style flow for working with our workbook. The other cool thing is it automatically lists all of your code in the way that it's executed in the grid. So one nuance that you need to get familiar with when authoring Python code is the fact that the data is executed row-wise. So left to right, top to bottom. Because then that allows us to have a deterministic calculation for your data. So if you decide to rename a variable later, you're not going to get different results every time you hit calc. So we've got our Python code here, and I can now actually expand the editor, as you can see here. And this gives me a much larger environment if I wanted to go in here and alter this code. We'll author a little more Python code in the next example, but you can see this is a full-fledged editor. It'll look a lot to you like probably what you from using VS Code, and that's because it uses something called the Monaco component, which is the editor that powers VS Code. So super awesome, full-fledged editor you can use to author your data. So if we want, I can actually author a line of code here, and I'll delete this since I had the example pre-built, but we can really easily build it. So you'll notice we've imported our function, and it's just called extract and format dates, and it expects an array of data. So down here, I've already defined this data, which is contained in the grid. And that's just our text that we had from before. Now, if I wanted, I can click here and add a new Python cell. And to do this, we're going to use our caller function, extract and format dates. I'll open my parentheses. And now I actually want to click on that data, which I can click on here. Excuse me. So one trick inside of Excel Labs is if you start typing Excel, it'll autocomplete for you, but you'll also notice that you get this little pencil here. And this means that you can actually go and you can select places in the grid for where you want to reference your data. So in this case, I've selected B4 and I can commit this and we should get a result back. So we're formatting our text, going up to the cloud, and then analyzing this data. So one other thing while that's calculating right now is you can also save code in intermediate states from inside of Excel Labs. So on the one hand, I've got this data here, but if I wanted to say go down here and I can do that without having to actually commit that. So I can click here, click around, make all sorts of edits that I might want to ahead of time. And I can also discard them if they aren't useful to me. And I think at this point, I've actually run into a bug on my side because we should have gotten our data back. So if you ever run into this bug yourself, one thing, make sure you go up here and log the information for us, send us a frown. But if you hit Control-Alt-Shift-F9, what that'll do is it'll actually reset the environment, which you can find Excel just crashed on me. That might be why. Yeah, we got all sorts of fun today. Okay. Stand by as I reload our demo. It's actually the first time I've had a crash while I've been demoing it. So I consider myself pretty lucky not having that happen more often. So let me close this out. There we go. All right, so let's do a recalc on everything. See if I can get our information flowing through. All right, so what we're getting here, I'll actually use this as another talking point. You'll notice we're getting an error and it says #Python. And whenever you get an error, you can actually click on the green triangle and click show error message. So what you're seeing is going on here is it's saying extract and format dates is not defined. That's the function that we're calling. So that means that I need to reset the runtime in this case so that we can actually get access to this. Another place that errors will show up is if you go to diagnostics here. They'll show up in here as well. So let's try to generate a new error and I should get, oh, well, now it's working. So I didn't get my error here, but in this case, we've actually completed our demo and now I've got my formatted text back. And the other thing I want to call out is that once this data lands into Excel land, it can be used in other Excel formulas. So you'll notice that the information I have here where I'm calculating the dates found is actually just using a default Excel formula and referencing the dynamic array that's being returned here. Okay, so moving along, I've got one more demo. It's been a lot of fun today. Hopefully this one, we don't get any crashes or unexpected behavior. So let this one up. And for this final one, what we're going to be doing is weather forecasting. So let me pull this up. All right. And the thing I like about this demo in particular is I think it really illustrates all of the improvements that we've been making to the calculation engine inside of Excel. So if you remember when I was giving my intro, one of my personal passions is bringing the concept of programming languages to Excel. I think there's a lot of great things when you think about Excel formulas, like formula language, first-class programming language, and there's a lot of benefits that we can bring to the product. And so one of the things we've been doing over the past couple of years is bringing the world of data types to Excel. And that includes things like dynamic arrays. So if you aren't familiar with those, you should definitely go check out our information on that. But now you can have a full-fledged array in the grid. We added support for kind of object-like structures through things like data types. Most recently, we added support for images. So now you can return images in Excel. And we added lambdas, which means that I can now encode my own custom functions. I don't have to, do a fill down and then have to update everything. So this demo really starts to bring all those concepts together in one neat package, which is why I like to give this one. And the first thing I'm going to do here is walk us through what exactly is going on, and then we'll do some analysis. So right here, you can see that we've got a bunch of historical data, and the factors we have on it are temperature, humidity, and wind speed, and then what the forecast was in the past. So you can see that information here. Now what we do is we bring that over into Python, and then we label everything. 0 means it's cloudy, 1 means it's rainy, and 2 means it's sunny. And then from there, we build our model, we fit them, and then we're able to get a prediction for the weather. And so you can see when I click here, we've actually got our prediction. So we build our model, we're going to get sunny, rainy, sunny, cloudy, cloudy. And then I merge all those sets of data together because we also need our current forecast. And then I'm able to build out a weather strip, or what you might see on a website or your favorite weather app when you're looking at your daily weather. But the difference is this is all done in Python and Excel. So I can change the calculation and alter predictions as I see fit. So now that we've got all of our data kind of included and calculated, what we can do is build out the weather strip using a set of just standard Excel functions. And so to do that, I'm actually not going to use the Python editor in this case because we've got our Python data already here. What I'd like to do is actually go use this thing called Advanced Formula Environment. And so what this does is it allows us to author Excel formulas in kind of a more VS Code style fashion. So you'll notice I don't have anything here, and that's because I don't have an Excel formula. But if I click on this names tab, you'll see that we have something called weather strip here. And what this is a Lambda that I defined ahead of time that basically takes in a forecast, and then it's going to spit out a bunch of images. And so it's doing that with a bunch of those new improvements we made with let, where we say, here's a bunch of assets from the image function that we recently introduced. And then the big heavy lifting is done by this map function call here, where we basically just have a bunch of ifs. So we say, hey, is it cloudy? If it's cloudy, return the cloudy picture, sunny, sunny picture, rainy, return the rainy picture. And from there, we can actually use this to build out our weather strip. So I'm going to flip back over to the grid view and author a formula. So if I go in here and type equals, you'll see that I automatically autocomplete for weather strip. So I can hit tab here. And now all I need to do is select the data that I want to create a weather strip from. In this case, I know it's cell B7. So I'll type cell B7 here. I'll commit that, and you'll notice we're getting a bunch of information back. So looks like the new prediction that we've got is actually that we're going to get a bunch of sunny weather. Now, the last thing that I want to do to kind of transform this up a bit is pull in the other information here. So again, I can use the function that I have here. And so I can call equals transpose. And actually, no, I'm going to do this one in the Excel grid because I want to show something else. So I'm going to do equals transpose here. And we want to pull in the full forecast that we have here. So I can click that, but you'll notice I get this drop-down menu, and we're going to reference the array preview here. In this case, I can use array preview because I know that I've only got 5 bits of data in my array. This might not be best practice. If you had something that was like 144 lines, you might need to extract that to the grid and reference the whole thing, but I can take a shortcut here. And so once I commit that, you'll see we get all that information, and now we've actually got our weather strip built. And the last thing that we can do is author one more Python formula. So to do this, I'm going to do something where I actually just pull out the forecast for tomorrow, because maybe the 5-day one is cool, but really I just care about, what I'm going to wear tomorrow, or if it's going to be really rainy here in Seattle, or maybe we're going to get lucky and get a warm day. So to do that, this also illustrates a little bit about the editor and how you can have intermediate changes ongoing. So we're going to define a new variable, and we're going to call this tomorrow forecast. And to do this, I'm going to call the forecast combined here. And you'll notice autocomplete is kicking in here just like it does inside of the formula bar. And I'm going to just take the first bit of data from that array using the .lock call. So .lock, and then I want to call this weather forecast. And so that's been changed. I haven't actually sent it back over to the grid, but now I can add another Python cell in anticipation of that. So I'm just going to call tomorrow's forecast. And when I save this down, you'll notice we calculate more information, but we're not going to get the tomorrow's forecast until I commit this bit. And so now we can see that for tomorrow's forecast, we've actually got sunny. And I don't need it to be an object, so I'll actually switch it over to an Excel value, and that completes my demo. So hopefully this shows off what we've been up to with Excel and Python. Also, thank you for dealing with all the technical difficulties we had today. Certainly isn't normal for when I give demos, but we managed to get through it. So I'll stop here, and I'm going to hand it back over to my colleague Keyur, who's going to wrap us up for the stuff we had to share today.
Perfect. I will reshare screen, and then Keyur will talk us through how we protect data. And then we will talk through how to try it out and resources towards the end. Sorry, I have to go through. It didn't start when I wanted it to. Okay, right here.
All right, cool. You, Ndeyanta and Chris. Sorry, was there another comment?
No, you can go ahead, Keyur, please.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I wanted to do was just briefly talk a bit about what you saw in the demo. So first things first, as a user, you don't really need to install anything beyond having Excel to run Python in Excel. Of course, right now you do need access to the beta channel on Windows to try out the beta. But essentially, like the thing that we kept hearing when we spoke to the community that was using Python and Excel together as part of their work was how much of a pain it was to get Python installed. And the common thread that we would hear is, yes, the way I did install Python is by downloading the Anaconda distribution. So in our efforts to bring Python to Excel, we wanted to bring you the best of what Python analytics offer. And so that's where the libraries and Python are actually from the actual Anaconda Python distribution. So that's one running in our container. The other point is the Python code itself runs in the cloud. So on the next slide, we can talk a little bit about what that means. So of course, when we announced Python and Excel, the feedback from you all had been amazing. And one of the questions that we got and we expected to get was, well, oh, wow, you're running code just like VBA, like what does that mean from a security perspective? And so really we wanted to just reiterate that we've designed this capability with security and protecting you and your data in mind. So a few things. One, if you're looking to try out this feature or you're getting a question from your IT admin about this, Python and Excel runs as a connected Microsoft 365 experience. So we're giving you the same security and compliance promises as other connected experiences. For example, if you've ever used the equals stock history function or the stock data types inside of Excel, the analyze data in Excel feature, or if you've ever co-authored with anybody on an Excel workbook before that's saved in OneDrive, those are all examples of connected experiences. And so Python and Excel really offers those same guarantees. And in addition to that, we understand that, hey, workbooks can have Python code in them, and we needed to protect you. So we do a few additional things. One is the Python code runs in its own hypervisor isolated container. If you open a workbook from the internet, that also is we give that additional isolation. And then to protect your organization's data and yourself and your machine, the Python code doesn't have access to your local disk, nor can it make network access. So this means that really the way you interact with data is through what, as Chris demoed, the Excel function to go and reference data in the grid. And that data can be data that lives in the grid or through a existing Power Query connection, as the video initially highlighted. And then finally, once you've run that Python code, the only way to return that data back is by values. So you can only return back strings, numbers, Booleans, or images back to Excel. So we think these promises will protect you and your data, but happy to hear any feedback that folks have. And again, really, we built this in mind with security. We built this in mind with collaboration, like the ability for you to just add Python to your workbooks and just share that with others and not have to worry about setup or anything. It just works. So that's our goal in bringing Python to Excel. All right, so with that, I'll pass it back to Ndeyanta.
Perfect. So to close us out, we have a few more slides. First, how to try it out if you haven't already. So I saw Keyur was answering some questions in the chat around this. But basically today, to be able to use Python and Excel, we are only available on Windows. So you have to be on a Windows computer in the beta channel. So we link the instructions here, and I'll also put this in the chat about how to join the Insiders program. And your build has to be the 16.818 or higher to be able to have access to the feature. You'll see the formula bar that Chris showed and the badge that changes in the cell if you type equals PY with the open parenthesis. There's also a wait list you can join with your Microsoft Work or School account to be notified about future availability. So as we share some news with you all about updates to the feature or new and exciting things that you guys can try, we will reach out to our wait list. So feel free to join that as well to stay up to date. And then for feedback, of course, you can reach out to us directly, leave feedback in this chat. But while you're using the feature, if anything comes to mind, you can go to help feedback in the app and let us know what you think. We do read through this stuff. So we promise if you leave your email address, we'll respond back to you, and or your feedback will be taken into consideration if you leave it there for us. And then lastly, Chris showed the Python editor, which is a great way to also execute and write Python code in addition to the cell and formula bar for more Jupyter-like experience for those who may be familiar with that development environment. So we have some instructions here and the link for the announcement there for you all to install that add-in if you don't already have it. And then finally, we have a collection of resources. Python may seem intimidating at first, and then learning it in a new development environment may seem intimidating as well, but we're here to support you all through that with our blogs that show a bunch of examples and how you can use Python in Excel, and then Copilot support, which will make the coding of this more accessible to everyone. We have a getting started template. So this is a great place for you to go if you just want to understand how everything works piece by piece. So we have about 10 to 15 different tabs in this file that walks you through everything from execution order to how to parse through errors and things like that. So we have an aka.ms link. If you go to that link, it will download a file for you to your desktop or to your downloads directly. And you can open that file, save it to your laptop, and continue to reference that. We also have a collection of support documentation. So similarly to other support docs you may have seen for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., we have one specifically for Python and Excel. We also have a LinkedIn Learning course. So this has been great. This is specifically for Python and Excel again. So we have an instructor here who created a series of 6 to 7 videos on basically everything that's explained in the getting started template, but he walks you through it with a bunch of demo files as well. So that's really helpful from a learning perspective. And then lastly, we have a bunch of content that's already been created by our community on YouTube. Folks like yourselves who've taken the time to show what they've been able to create in Python and Excel or teach others how to use it. So we have a playlist here that was created by another MVP that we like to link out to just because there's a lot of great stuff in that. So if you ever have time or just want to take a look at what others are doing or look for some inspiration, feel free to go to that link there. And so with that, that's everything we had for presentation-wise today. Thank you all again for your time. I know we mentioned we might want to take a picture and answer some more questions too. So I'll stop sharing my screen for now, and we'll pass it back over for us to close out. Oh. I think you're still on mute. Yeah.
Cool. So I think we have a question coming from WhatsApp chat asking that how the Python, when the Python will be available for public users, and is it available on the web?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So right now we're available in, as Ndeyanta mentioned, in Excel for Windows. Our plan is to make this available broadly everywhere Excel runs over time. But initially our focus will be Excel for Windows. So we'd love your feedback. So please do try the beta, access it, and send us feedback.
So let me just check, and it's a nice comment in the chat here. people are thanking the Microsoft team for this great achievement you have done. Thanks, Kam. Okay, guys, so we'll be wrapping up the session, and thank you so much, Microsoft team, for coming today. But please don't sign out. We'll be still here. We will be having some after party. We'll be going signing out from the YouTube live, but we'll be still back over here. So it is really lovely to have you, team, over here. And I know that this has been a lot of effort been done by all the team members in Microsoft, and we love you, Team Excel and Microsoft team, for this great achievement. And I would just like to put it up last thing, like I always ask my speakers some kind of a quote or anything they would like to give that can motivate us or anything, any Steve Jobs or maybe Keyur has his own quote or Chris has his own one. So you can just say, I'll start with Chris. Okay, so please, Chris, go ahead, and then Nadia, and then Keyur, please.
So any sort of quote, is that what we're looking for?
Any last words for the community,
Oh, I think for last words for me are just thank you for everyone for like all the support with all this. Has been awesome seeing the community support and the excitement around this. So even working on Python, it was pretty cool to work on this under wraps, but we were super nervous about like, how's the reception going to be? Are people going to like it? So yeah, so far we think it's been going pretty well, but just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And thank you for always sending us feedback, because we look at that stuff on a daily basis and it really does help us improve the product. So we listen and we want to keep responding and making the best Excel for you.
Yeah, I think Chris put it succinctly. We love Python, we love Excel, and we love you all as a community. So thank you. Yeah.
I'd echo everything that's already been said. I was a pretty heavy Excel user before coming to Microsoft, and a pretty heavy Python user too. So it was really cool to get the opportunity to be on this feature crew. It's been a lot of hard work on our side, but again, like they all mentioned, wouldn't be possible without the help and support from you all. Some of you may have even been part of our private preview before we went public. So thank you again for your time. And we look forward to working with you as we make it better, because we're only in the beginning.
Okay.
Super, my friend. So thank you, everyone. And we'll be just signing out from the YouTube. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next session, which will be in November. Thank you. Okay, guys.